Moin! Hello, welcome. We got a video about Canadian veterans and their being celebrated in the Netherlands. So this is Veterans Day or VE Day, and the bond that is shared from historical events between Netherlands and Canada in World War II. This is from Pieta Greveling. Danka. Let's check this out. I did have family. My grandfather was involved in World War II, and videos like these, like I don't know what the content is in the video, but when I see videos and hear stories and become immersed in stories and retellings of people when they're faced with the greatest horrors and adversity, coming together and helping one another, I can get emotional. Like when I see stories of that, when people just really showing the best of us, like the best that we can do, the kindness, the bravery, the courageousness, especially of people that are faced with incredibly difficult situations. Yeah, let's watch.
Beautiful. Flowers in full bloom, parks pristine, streets spotless. It's a far cry from what the same spots were like 70 years ago. The Germans had leveled the cities, murdered those who got in the way.
Yeah, the Blitzkrieg was no laughing matter, and the German army.
And sent tens of thousands of Jews to be gassed in death camps. The Dutch who were left were starving after the 5 years of brutal Nazi occupation. By 1945, they were so hungry, some were eating tulip bulbs to stay alive.
The starved, rickets-ridden bodies of this Dutch family are witnesses to the treatment the Germans meted out to our friends in Holland.
The images of starving children really get me.
That's when the Canadians arrived, blasting their way into towns like this one, Apeldoorn, crushing the Nazis, liberating the people. The Dutch have never forgotten, never. And this week, they'll be in these streets again, by the thousands, to welcome back some of those Canadians, now in their 90s, who gave them their country, their lives, back.
And when did this video was posted? Already 9 years ago.
I've been coming here for 20 years, never ceasing to be amazed at the Dutch determination to say thank you.
This street with its pennants and Canadian flags is representative of many streets across the Netherlands right now, as the Dutch...
This is one of our most famous broadcasters, well, for the CBC anyways.
...mark the major contribution that Canada played in the liberation of their country half a century ago.
I'm very young. I only hear stories from my grandfather and grandmother.
Peter Mansbridge is his name.
But yes, they freed us 50 years ago, so that's why I'm here.
I think it's a love affair between the Canadians and the Dutch.
Well, 60 years is an awfully long time, but not long enough for the Dutch to forget the pain, the loss, the suffering, and the oppression of living under Nazi rule all those years during the Second World War. And not long enough either to forget the liberation and those who brought it to them.
It's a beautiful day. This is out of this world.
I'm feeling liberated.
107,000 people left this place on the trains.
Look at this street sign in an Apeldoorn suburb. If the name looks Canadian, it's because it is.
Like videos like this and events like this, it definitely puts things into perspective, right, for people. And you really have to understand and have gratitude for the things that we have because of what people did in the past. And how you have to have gratitude for every day as well. Like, and every meal that you eat, you should have some gratitude and be thankful for what you do have. And, you know, complaining and the pettiness that you now see on social media and online and people within the political sphere and the culture wars and everything like that. The pettiness and the cruelty. Like, you got it good. You got it really good. Like, right? So, yeah, it definitely puts things into perspective, I would say. You know, stuff like that.
Dozen streets in this neighborhood are named after one of the almost 8,000 Canadians who never came home from the battle. What was it about those young men who, through the generations, the Dutch won't stop thanking? Who were those guys?
George Beale was one of them, a major with the 48th Highlanders. Every few days he'd stop and write a letter home to his wife, Ruth, in Toronto. This is one of them. Here's what he said.
Don't read the letter. Really?
My own darling, I haven't written you for 5 days. I didn't feel much like it, sweetie, as we were fighting again, and I was awfully busy, and we've been having a tough fight. At the moment, I'm sitting in a city called Apeldoorn, and the Queen's Palace is within 100 yards of me. That's the Queen's Palace, right over there. We're about 100 yards from it. He might have been right here. We entered the town proper this morning after a big advance from the Isle River. I'm fine, Ruth, so don't worry, although I'm very tired. The enemy's running like the devil again, and we have to chase him.
The fighting was bloody, and the dying. But through it all, George wrote to Ruth about the love he had for his men.
He wrote this one on Sunday, April 22nd. I have fought and lived with those men for over a year, and to me they seemed as though they were part of my family. They never refused to go any place I ordered, and did everything I asked them to, cheerfully and willingly, knowing most of the time that I might be sending them to their deaths.
There were lots of individual Canadian heroes here, Army men like George Beale, but Air Force flyers too.
Pieta, what did you do? You got to me. I think this is the only video I've teared up here.
50 years ago, these fields near Nistelrode in southeastern Holland were home base for a Royal Canadian Air Force Spitfire squadron. One of those Canadian pilots was a 22-year-old chap from Lethbridge, Alberta, whose name was Richard Odette. Well, near the end of December 1944, Odette had flown more than 50 missions. But up until that point, he had scored no German kills. Well, on the 29th of December, 1944, all that changed. When Richard Odette flew out of one of these fields, he flew right into the history books. Before he returned, he had shot down 5 German aircraft. No other Canadian pilot, no other British pilot had scored that many victories in one mission.
Meanwhile, frontline fighters broke through to capture key strategic locations. All this was happening as the Nazis were facing their final desperate days, until that last moment when the fighting and the dying suddenly stopped. 70 years ago this week, the war ended.
And here's what George Beale wrote to Ruth on that same day. You can feel the emotion.
Oh, I thought they said that George Beale didn't come back.
In his voice. Darling, you couldn't possibly have any idea just what kind of a reception it has been and still is. The people go simply mad. And I had the honor, darling, of being the leading vehicle, my Jeep. Any town we went through, the people crowded the roads, and we had a most difficult time getting past them. They all want to touch your hand or even kiss you, and they simply pelted us with flowers. My Jeep looked like a florist shop.
It does make all the hardships worthwhile when you see the joy of these liberated people. For this year's returning heroes, new medals from the local mayor.
Your memories, your thoughts guide us as we shape our future.
And new thoughts about an old battle.
Well, I was stationed here during the war as a Canadian Women's Army Corps, which I'm very proud of. And it brings back so many memories. And I always have a place in my heart for Holland, for Apeldoorn.
And it's a great, great day, you know. For the little thing we did, we get so much, 1,000 times more time.
The Dutch people are so
The Dutch people are the best people in the world, and I mean it.
Vongeningen just down the road from Apeldoorn, in that little building. That's where the Germans finally surrendered. These extraordinary pictures capture the moment.
To the Commander-in-Chief, 21 Army.
Yeah, it's just crazy, right? Like World War II, and it's not even really that long ago, right? It's, I mean, we're coming up on just past 80 years, I guess. Right?
These forces to lay down their arms and to surrender unconditionally.
And there at the table, Canadian General George Kitching, distinguished then and just as distinguished when I chatted with him at the same table 50 years later.
How do you feel when you come back in this room?
It's almost as if they're ghosts, as if you are the German on the opposite side of the table, Peter. It was full of people then. Any movement, it was a very quiet room. And in spite of the fact that there were 30 Canadian reporters, they were quiet.
The general is gone now, and so are many of the men who fought with him. But the ones who are left, the ones who still come, the ones the Dutch, young and old, still so adore, are here with their memories. The ones that hurt, the ones that leave them quiet, and the ones that somehow make them smile.
I've never felt that I sacrificed anything to be part of a liberating army.
There were so many Canadians who lost their lives.
Yeah, I feel like, I'm not an expert on the events of World War II and every single Canadian mission and every single involvement that the Canadians had with the war efforts. But, in November, and obviously November 11th, Remembrance Day, I always make sure, I always got my poppy on. I always try, have the utmost gratitude for what these young men did and young women did and what they sacrificed. I can't imagine being in their situation. It's something that you can't even imagine. So it's obviously something you're very thankful for.
I was here in the Netherlands. How did you handle that on a day-to-day basis?
I put it out of my mind altogether, but nonetheless I cry when I go to the cemetery and see my friends' graves.
I never learned to cry. You just feel it inside.
What does it mean to you guys to be remembered the way you are here in this country, the way they look at you, the way they react to you?
It's 7 years ago that we were here, but still, the kids are still enthusiastic about what we did here 70 years ago, and I love to see kids the way they greet us and the way they look in such admiration at us,
Really, it was something to feel the happiness, the joy of the liberation.
I asked the people I was staying with, what is this touching bit, They asked permission to touch you, and I couldn't get over that, so they want to touch a liberator, and they want their children to touch a liberator.
20 years ago, I asked the then mayor of Apeldoorn why it was that the Dutch never forgot the Canadians. His answer was very simple, very direct. He said, you have to have been occupied to appreciate what freedom really means. And when you do, you never forget who gave it to you. That's why Canada is never forgotten here. Never.
Great video. Yeah, it's pretty obviously emotional for a lot of people. Yeah, I got emotional just watching it, and imagining what these generations went through, and just the story is so compelling, right? And the story of human endeavor and human courage and triumph and oppression, right? Like the people there were occupied, like you said. So that's why the mayor said it was so, that was one of the ways that he put it, right? The amazing thing was, you know, you had to know what it's like to be occupied to understand the reverence for the liberator. So, very cool video. I wouldn't put it past like CBC having some sort of copyright on this video, so we'll see. Hopefully it doesn't get blocked. But yeah, it was very, very good. Very, very interesting, and you know, I enjoyed it. All right, we'll see everybody on the next video. Auf Wiedersehen. Bye. Tschüss. Paalam. See you next time, eh?